Pumpkin puffs are a great way to massively expand your pumpkin gardening profits, but only if you have the time and patience to cook them. Assuming you're like me and you do, there's just one thing. It seems certain puffs are just a little more puffier than others. There are actually 3 different recipes you can use to cook pumpkin puffs, and each sells for a different amount of star coins. So I set out to determine whether it's better to make standard puffs, deluxe puffs, or ultimate puffs. And I'm calculating this in both terms of price per pumpkin and star coins per minute. Which pumpkin puff will be the clear choice for overachieving pumpkin farmers everywhere? Let's find out. The standard pumpkin puff recipe calls for 1 pumpkin, 1 cheese, and 1 egg. But you can actually put more pumpkins into the recipe, and when you do, the price goes up. So the thing to do is to just sell all 3 different varieties of puff. To be clear, regular pumpkin puffs with just 1 pumpkin, deluxe pumpkin puffs with 2 pumpkins, and ultimate pumpkin puffs with 3 pumpkins each. For each batch of puffs, I'm going to use 102 pumpkins worth of ingredients. Why 102? Because I wanted to do 100, but it's not divisible by 3. So all this means is that in terms of ingredients we need to obtain, regular pumpkin puffs are 102 pumpkins, 102 pieces of coal, 102 eggs, and 102 cheeses. Deluxe pumpkin puffs are 102 pumpkins, but only 51 pieces of coal, 51 eggs, and 51 cheeses. And finally, the ultimate pumpkin puffs are 102 pumpkins, only 34 pieces of coal, 34 eggs, and 34 cheeses. Now it's time to cook. So it took me just shy of 8 minutes to cook 102 regular puffs. Not bad. Now here's where it gets a little interesting. Since you can only make about half as many deluxe puffs from 102 pumpkins as you can standard puffs, that means it should take pretty much exactly half the time, or about 4 minutes. I'm glad I actually field tested this because I found out the hard way that that is simply not true. It actually took me 6 minutes and 14 seconds to craft the deluxe puffs. And the reason for that is because you can't use the autofill function exclusively. For each deluxe pumpkin puff, I had to manually drag in an additional pumpkin, and the time spent doing so really added up. While the timer wasn't running, I did try to see if there was any way to use the history function to autofill a recipe, but it seems like there's no getting out of adding that pumpkin manually. Now, with that in mind, can you guess how long it would take to cook 34 ultimate puffs with 3 total pumpkins each? If you're thinking about 5 minutes, you're exactly right. So I feel like the time savings from reducing the amount of recipes I'm cooking with each pumpkin farming haul is way less than I expected. And it's also a more manual process than I anticipated. I am very surprised by these results. But the real proof is in the pricing. Does the amount of profit from these more pumpkin-y versions of pumpkin puffs make them the way to go? Well, 102 regular pumpkin puffs containing only 1 pumpkin each sell to Goofy for 151,800 star coins, or 110,490 star coins after you subtract material costs. Now, you'll notice I'm deliberately leaving out the cost of pumpkins in the form of pumpkin seeds. That's because acquiring 102 pumpkins costs exactly the same no matter which version of pumpkin puffs you end up cooking with them. Remember, we're not calculating the total process profit here, we're just calculating the cooking bonus. So, next up, let's see how much we can get for the deluxe version. 51 deluxe pumpkin puffs sell for 109,800 star coins, or 89,145 after you subtract materials. And finally, 34 ultimate pumpkin puffs sell for 95,700 star coins, or 81,930 after subtracting out costs. Well, that's kind of big money considering that you get that for making only 34 meals. So yeah, overall very impressive numbers for very small time expenditures. But it does beg the question, how many star coins per minute do you actually make with each one of these methods? Well, I of course did the math, and standard puffs come out to about 13,898 star coins per minute. Deluxe puffs came out to 14,301 star coins per minute. And ultimate puffs came out to 15,909 star coins per minute. So if you're strictly targeting earnings per minute, cooking pumpkin puffs with 3 pumpkins per recipe is going to be the most advantageous. But wait just a second. How many star coins are we getting per pumpkin when we cook all these puffs? Well, I mathed that out too. And after coal, egg, and cheese expenses are subtracted, I came up with these per pumpkin prices for each type of pumpkin puff. So now the standard pumpkin puff recipe is on top. Are you surprised? I kind of am. I assumed the Ultimate Puffs would be the king of puffs, but in terms of pumpkin per pumpkin value, I gotta declare the Standard Puff the clear winner here. I will say if you're really short on time but still do want to cook puffs, it can make sense to just cook the Ultimate Pumpkin Puffs and maximize your earnings per minute. But if what you're really focused on is just maximizing your star coins and you don't mind spending just a little more time zoning out into deep introspection in a spooky underground cave, you gotta go with the Standard Pumpkin Puffs. And if you want to know why you should craft pumpkin puffs at all, instead of just going ahead and selling the pumpkins outright, check out the video on screen now. You'll be surprised how much more money you can make. It's kind of a lot.